People had questions about, a lot of questions about processing the nuts that we have been growing and harvesting. Look at this woolly bear. Hopefully it's a good winner. It's a pretty big stripe right there. Put him over in the shade. This is a little bit of a video about it that I'll make to show folks. So we've grown these black walnuts here. These are some of them. They've been in the ground about 13 years. They're starting to bear really well. And I've harvested them in the last couple weeks. And after a little while, they get pretty soft. So you can easily just get the hull right off. Some will be full of like little worms, but that doesn't matter. They don't get into the actual nut, because this is just the hull. Black walnuts have a massive hull, and then they have a super hard nut right here. And those are somewhat indestructible. So that's why a lot of people have a hard time processing them. We just wait a week or 2 or 3 till they get real soft. And then I'm just putting them out in the sun to dry. And I'll also put them on screens often above the wood stove, just where it's like basically like 85 to 110 degrees or so, dry heat. Dry them up nicely, and then they store for many, many months, if not years, in the shell. And I'll only eat them basically freshly shelled. You know, don't shell them ahead of time. Nuts go rancid really quickly. And most nuts you get in a store, even like a good co-op, are rancid already because they're all shelled, a lot of them. You want to eat nuts right fresh out of the shell. And once you start doing that, you'll notice that the nuts that are pre-shelled that you get at the store are rancid. And they're not really that good for you then. And actually, there's a lot that says that they're bad for you in a lot of ways. There's a lot of toxic compounds that are made when nuts go rancid. Any fats, when fats go rancid in general. So, and things that are high in fat, I believe, tend to go rancid really quickly. Like good oils as well go rancid fast. So you want to keep everything in the shell as long as you can. So this is the process, pretty straightforward. Wear gloves unless you don't mind your hands getting dyed very dark. Black walnut's a great dye material. You can make amazing dye out of it. But I'd rather my hands don't get super dyed. So, and I just move them around, you know, once or twice today. Whenever I pass by, I'll just move them around so they dry up. But I'll probably finish these above the wood stove. We have some stainless steel screens that I make, and then we have this drying rack system which works great. This is just we have a beautiful day right now to dry, and these are getting pretty funky in my car, so it's time to get them out of the hull. That's the process. Then I'll show you how we crack them in a second. And one more aspect of nut processing that we do here is use this master cracker. This is pretty new to me as well, but so this actually wants to mount in reverse, so you have more of the wood over here. But again, I clamp this down, so it doesn't really matter when I'm using it. But just for demonstration, I'll show you guys. You take a walnut, and it's got this amazing ingenious mechanism here where you can open it quickly but then get a lot of leverage. So it's not super slow, yet it still has a lot of force. And walnuts are super hard, so you need some real force to get them open. These are ones we've grown, selected varieties, for 13 years. And so they have a lot of nut meat. That's one of the main things you want to breed nuts for, is ratio of nut meat to nut. Not so much the size of the nut. We're all about this, the nut meat itself. And these are amazing fresh. Completely unlike walnuts that you know from the store. I had no idea before I started eating them. Just like with a lot of things, right? When you start eating them fresh, you're like, oh, that's what it's supposed to taste like. So this isn't dried yet, but that doesn't matter. These are just super fresh. Sometimes I like cracking it kind of on the end. It seems to kind of allow access to the meat better. I crushed it a little bit there, but it's nice to dry them because then when they come apart, you don't get all that funk on the outside in your meat. But so like, I'll probably toss that. But you know, because the outside, the hull gets all funky. You don't want the hull in your food. Here's one that's a little drier. I just hulled these so they're still wet. There we go. So, good amount of nut meat. I'm still have a lot to learn about doing this efficiently. Luckily, this food is high value, so you don't need to get a lot of this stuff that quickly. Although that's always nice. Stuff is so good. This is called the Master Cracker. It's made, I think, by a guy in Missouri. Just look it up online. You can find them. There's cheap imitation ones. Like with anything, it's worth it to get the good one from what it sounds like from people who've used the imitation. They stole the guy's design. Amazing design. You can adjust it more here. You can adjust this side, and then you can open it up wide, close it, get tons of leverage right here. Really snazzy machine. So when I do this, as I say, I clamp this down. I let all this stuff dry, so none of this is wet and kind of funky. Then your hands can stay clean. And I have like a nut pick with me too. Just a little, you know, a little sharp piece of metal to poke out the nut meats. But I only do this as I eat the nuts. So again, you're not going to sit around and do a whole bunch of this because you want to eat this nut meat fresh. Because this stuff goes rancid really quickly. Walnut's a very high fat nut, so you don't want to eat it when it's not fresh, or you're eating rancid gnats. Some nuts I'll put through this. You want to put like a dishcloth over it because it'll blow up the nuts. They'll go flying. When it's dry, it'll do that. But the nuts right now are kind of moist. Look at that. Wow. That's a good one. Full of meat there. So. This is like, you eat like 6 of these, 10 of these, and you've got a lot of food value in you. A lot of nourishment. Again, when the stuff is wet, it's not ideal. You want to let your gnats dry out. But I'm just giving you guys a demo and kind of had a moment, so I'm being hasty and showing you it all at once, including like the hulling. You wouldn't want to. You don't want to hull and then crack, you know, the same hour, obviously, but that's what I'm doing just right now. These will be dry, pretty dry by end of day. Here's one that's dry. I'll show you a better example. They get a lot smaller. See, they crack up nice, and then you've got a clean nut to extract there. This is a better example. See? And that's a lot of food, you know? A lot of food value. Not a lot of quantity, but a lot of quality. So a little nut extractor, a little piece of metal, a little metal probe helps with stuff like that. You can also crack them again, but then you can end up busting them all apart too. Beautiful day. Perfect day to do this. Although I gotta get on to other stuff. I gotta get fencing. Kind of distracting myself right now because this is fun. And eating a lot. Look how fresh this is. They're not brittle when they're this fresh. It's cool. 13 years in, and You finally see, all right, what's the value of the nuts that I've been growing for this long? How big are the nut meats? How easy are they to get out? They're pretty good.